Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Listen to the air conditioner.
Yeah, you can hear it. Yep. Sorry.
Yep.
Here. Yep. Sorry.
Yep.
Here.
Plug it in.
David, give me a mic.
Calvine UFO, Sheffield University,
It is a little hot.
2nd of June
Should be.
2023.
I mean, it's loud. Maybe you have your headphones really loud. I mean, it doesn't sound distorted, but it's loud. And then, wait, hold on 1 sec.
Pictures that look amazing. Can you give us a comment from the Ministry of Defence point of view? And Craig's response was, well, I can't give you a comment until I've seen the images. So the picture editor said, well, I'll tell you what, I will run a copy of the best of the 6 for you and I'll send it over to you, to your office by courier. So that's what he did, and a couple of days later, this envelope dropped on the desk of Craig Lindsay at RAF Retrieving, and this is the original envelope which he saved with the original print. The guy on the UFO desk, who we think was Owen Hartop, Nick Pope's predecessor,
Right.
asked Craig Lindsay, could he speak to the photographer? So, as well as arranging for the negatives to be sent by the record to London, he asked, could he have a contact for the person who'd taken the photographs? So, the guy on the Daily Record gave him a phone number to ring. So he phoned this number, and someone answered, and it was the reception at a hotel somewhere in Pitlochry. Now, in memory, Craig thinks it was the Athol Palace Hotel, which is this huge building on the outskirts of Pitlochry. It's the main hotel. So he in his memory, thinks that's where this person was. Straight as a die, told him the story about what had happened. He said him and his friend, they were working in the kitchens, temporary kitchen staff, just to earn a bit of pocket money. And one a day, in August in 1990, they'd had a long day working a shift in the kitchen. They were really tired, and they thought, if shift finishes about 8 or 9 o'clock, we'll have a drive up the Glen, 13 miles, and we'll do a walk before the sun sets, because it's light until really late in August in Scotland. So they drove up the Glen to this little hamlet called Calvine. They parked there, they crossed the road, walked up this hillside into a bit of there's very little trees, because once you get above a certain level in Scotland, you've just got barren moors and you can see for miles over the mountains. They went up through this patch of trees, hopped over a line of barbed wire, which you can actually see on the photograph.
Yep, I see that.
As they went over the barbed wire, they saw this object hovering directly above them, absolutely silent. And the object you can see in the photograph, this weird grey diamond-shaped object, absolutely silent. As they're watching it, they heard the noise of a jet engine, and they said that as they stood absolutely terrified looking at this thing, wondering what to do, they saw what appeared to be a jet aircraft coming down the valley, north to south, that passed behind this object and disappeared off into the distance. So they waited a bit longer, heard the engines again, either the same jet or another one coming back the opposite direction across the valley, and that's when they started taking pictures with the camera that they got. So they were standing there, and I think they were so terrified at one point they literally leapt backwards over the fence that you can see in the image. So they were snapping away, and they said they saw this aircraft come along. I think it would have been north to south. I'm not absolutely sure because of the directions of the valley, the way the valley's orientated, and this aircraft sort of banked around the object. You can see this apparently in the strip of negatives, and as if the pilot had seen the object and was sort of manoeuvring around it to get a better view, and then disappeared off down the valley again. And as they stood watching this object, just suddenly it just went vertically upwards, high into the sky, and vanished with no sound whatsoever.
How fast did it take off, according to the witnesses, apparently?
Just at some incredible speed, directly vertically upwards. That's just from my memory of Craig's account.
Mm-hmm.
His memory of a telephone conversation that he
Yes.
had 32 years ago.
Right.
So all of this, obviously in the retelling, there's going to be things added and things taken away.
Yeah.
So you have got to bear in mind this is a
But he
second,
kept-
third-hand account.
Yep, but he kept the original print that was sent to him. He
Yes.
kept the scans that went to the MOD.
Yep.
So,
Well, you see, no one asked him to hand these over. And what happened was, as a press officer,
thank God.
he'd spoken to the Daily Record. The Daily Record were telling him this was their exclusive. He expected the story to be splashed over the front page of that newspaper.
It would have been huge.
It would have been used. So every day, he obviously as press officer for Scotland, all the newspapers are delivered to his office. So every morning, he's going through the newspapers expecting to see the UFO story. Nothing. So later that year, I think it must have been in October, November 1990, he went on a trip to London, which was apparently a regular meeting of all the different press officers from around the UK, met up at MOD main building for a conference quite regularly. This story was still on his mind. He thought, well, I'll go upstairs. I've got security clearance to get into the offices upstairs, so I'll go and see my contact at the UFO desk, presumably Owen Hartop. So he went upstairs and opened the door to this room, Secretariat, Air Staff, and walked into the room, and lo and behold, directly across from the main
A
door,
poster of
a
it.
poster-sized version,
On the
huge
wall.
version of this photograph on the wall, and said, what's happening with this photograph? And he said, well, we sent it to our photographic experts, which at that time was an agency called Jarrick, which were based at RAF Brampton. They still are, they're called something different now, but they are the RAF's top photographic experts. These are the people who in the Second World War were involved in the analysis of the V2 hangars at Peenemünde in Poland. So apparently Jarrick had analysed the strip of negatives. They decided there were a genuine photograph of something in the sky. It wasn't a prank or a hoax. That's what he was told. And that's the moment, apparently, when he saw the other six. Well, he saw all six of them together, because they must have been laid out on a table or something like that. So he was able to see, the other images of the aircraft manoeuvring around the object. The first image just shows the strange object. The second image is the one you're looking at. There's another image showing the aircraft manoeuvring around the object in a different position. There's a third image that shows a second area at a further distance, and the area that you can see there. And then another image just showing the strange unidentified object. So you've got originally a strip of negatives showing this sequence of events. So he said, well, what are you doing with it? Are you going to release it? And he was told, don't say anything more about it, leave it to us, we'll deal with it. And off he went back to Scotland. Heard nothing more about it until 30 years later, or 32 years later, the phone rings and I'm on the phone to him.
Oh, they dealt with it all right.
So he retired.
They dealt with it all right.
He retired in 2000, and he was clearing his desk out, as you do when you leave your job. And among all the little souvenirs and things from 20 odd years of being a press officer, pilots would give you things and little trinkets, that kind of thing. Lo and behold, there's the print, and he actually talked to him, and he said, shall I dispose of it? Shall I throw it away? Should I take it with me? And thankfully for us, he decided to take it home with him. So he put it inside a big volume of the world's aircraft, and that's where it stayed until he turned it over to Sheffield Hallam University.
I read an article that he said he was waiting for someone to ask him about the prints.
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, how's anyone supposed to know to ask him about the prints if they don't know that he has the prints?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And I heard about this probably in the late 90s from Nick Pope, because I was constantly interviewing Nick Pope. I put him in 3 or 4 movies. And I said, what's the best photographic evidence? And he said, we have a poster of it on the wall in the MOD, and he described it a little bit to me. He wouldn't go into great detail. And I hounded him every 5 years. I would bring it up. Who's there? Who is working there? Who can you put me in touch with that's retired? Where is it? Surely nobody threw it away. I guarantee you guys the negatives are still out there. The photographs are still out there. Somebody must have walked out of there with it. Come on, give me some numbers of people that are retired. I promise you, I was hounding him and hounding him and hounding him. So when I heard about this, and you, and Craig Lindsay, I lit up. I mean, I've been waiting 25 years, 27, 28. I mean, forever.
Well, lots of people have said, why has Craig Lindsay decided to talk now? He hadn't. I tracked him down using investigative journalism techniques. It wasn't the fact that he'd come out after 30 years and suddenly decided to unburden his soul about what he knew about it.
So you found him.
Yeah.
And then he said, yes, I have a print.
Yes, but not immediately. It took a while to sort of persuade him that in the public interest, rather than this print disappearing for good, that he should turn it over and it should be in a public archive somewhere, which is where it now is.
Wow, that was genius. So you and Lindsay are the two heroes on this story.
Well, I would describe myself as a hero.
Well, obviously, because you found it. You found him, and then you persuaded him to come forward.
This is my job, James. This is what I've been doing for the last 20, 30 years. You know, if you look at the other work that I've done, you know, in the archives, this is why I was given the job by the National Archives in the UK as of being their spokesperson and curator for when they released all these Ministry of Defence files. There's a project that ran from 2008 to 2013, and basically the Ministry of Defence turned over it wasn't their entire remaining sort of collection of UFO files, but the vast majority of what had survived, which was all scanned, redacted and released online to the public, and we released them in 10 separate tranches where people could download the files, and that's where I first sort of saw the Calvine image, because although Nick Pope had written about it in his first book, Open Skies,
Closed
that's
Minds.
where everyone learned about it, because no one knew that this set of photographs had ever been in existence.
The MOD released some stuff in 2008 or 2009?
2009.
Copyright Kevin Russell. Now, was this classified, this name, before? Because
it wasn't classified, it never has been. It's just simply that under the UK Data Protection Act.
But you had this name before it got out.
No, I only got the name when I had access to the print that you're holding.
And did you make that announcement publicly?
Not immediately, no.
So Craig Lindsay saved this for 30 plus years.
Yes. Even after retirement, he took it with him.